Hey everybody, welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today in this episode, we are talking about freeze-dried meals, specifically what it takes to create a freeze-dried meal and maybe what separates more premium freeze-dried meals from a lower quality freeze-dried meal and why that can be important to you. I know that over the years, I have had all kinds, and I try to test almost every meal I can get my hands on. And there's a massive difference between the more premium side of things and the lesser premium side of things. And obviously, taste is a huge factor. Depending on what you're doing out there, you obviously want to be eating something that you love and that tastes great. And sometimes you'll find yourselves in situations out there where you don't feel hungry. And when you have a very delicious meal out there at your disposal, that makes all the difference in the world for you being able to get those calories in, get recovery started, and really reset the next day versus have it go the other direction where the next day becomes harder and harder if you're trying to stick to some kind of schedule or mileage goals. Overall, I think food is incredibly important, which is exactly why we brought on the guests that we did. So in this episode, we brought on Jeff Garmire and Luke Pearsall from Readywise Meals. They recently came out with meals that are available on the Live Ultralight membership right now, which I'll touch on in a second. But they recently came out with 8 new meals in their Pro Series edition. These really stepped up the game for Readywise. Prior to these meals, I wasn't a huge fan of some of the Readywise meals that they had, but they completely rewrote the script. And I'm all about rewriting the script, right? It's all about what you're creating now and where you're moving towards. And these are premium. We had our entire team utilize these on the Colorado Trail, as well as a handful of other adventures that we went on this year to make sure that we truly stood behind the meals, liked the meals, that they sat well with us, and the vote was unanimous that we liked them, and now we do have them in the Live Ultralight membership. So if you're unfamiliar with the Live Ultralight membership, just really quickly, that is our membership at Outdoor Vitals where it's $10 a month. That $10 goes into store credit that never expires, so you have that at your disposal to spend at any time. But as a part of that, one of the benefits, I'll just touch on this one, is that retail items are gated inside of there. So you can buy these Readywise meals inside of the membership at a discount because you get a year-round discount, and we offer rebates on them. So you really won't be able to buy these anywhere else for any cheaper than inside the Live Ultralight membership, and that is because it is gated and exclusive. So if you're looking to pick up backpacking meals, that is going to be your best place to find meals that are both trusted by us and our team and also get them at the best possible prices every day of the year. Even if you join the Live Ultralight membership for just the meals, you can easily pick up 12 plus meals a year and use all of the credit for joining that Live Ultralight membership. And then all of the other benefits are just additional to it. So go join that membership if you're interested in Readywise meals, Peak Refuel, or anything else. But today we're really focused on what it takes to make these meals, why they're so important, which is why it was awesome we were able to bring Jeff and Luke onto the podcast. Now, Jeff has been on the podcast before. He's an extreme athlete. He's someone who's hiked tens of thousands of miles, multiple FKTs. He's a triple crowner as well as a bunch of other trails that he's done. And now he's even coaching in endurance racing as well as an endurance racing athlete himself. So a massive, massive resume of time on trail. And he's going to be someone who has seen all extremes from poor nutrition and meal quality all the way up to, when you're racing at an elite level, nutrition is half of the race, right? So someone who's seen it all and experienced so many miles on trail. And then Luke also, who is the brand manager at Readywise, has a ton of experience in the outdoor industry as a media professional and is just extremely well connected and brings so much energy, which you guys will see in this podcast. Just full of energy, full of excitement for what they have going on there. And they're continuing to push, which we'll get to at the very end of this episode. So join with me as we talk about what it takes to bring these meals to life, but more importantly, how they benefit you as a hiker, as an athlete, as a car camper, whatever it is you're doing, why they're important to you, and how to make sure to get the right ones when you're shopping around. All right, I've got Luke and Jeff on the podcast today from Readywise to talk about their new pro meals and maybe a little bit more specifically about the meal that Jeff helped to create with Readywise. I'm really hoping, guys, to dive into some of the backstory of how the heck you create a meal from scratch, what that process looks like, but also being able to talk to two experts like you. I'm hoping to learn about maybe things to look for or things to avoid in freeze-dried meals, just in general. But before we get there, I'd love to hear kind of the backstory of how you guys got involved with Readywise, your background in these type of creations, and just start right there. So maybe let's start with you, Luke. I think the podcasters, they know Jeff a little bit more. He's been on the show. He's a repeat offender here. So let's start with you, Luke, and just hear kind of how you got into this world.
Yeah. So I had a career in film and television, actually, before I became heavily involved in the outdoor industry. And I sort of did that whole outdoor influencer thing inadvertently, only because I was a creative in the outdoors. So it kind of naturally happened for me. As those years kind of passed, I started to do more consulting with outdoor brands and things like that. And fortunately, I was able to bring all the experience from, all the trails that I've hiked and all the camping experiences that I've had, like, into the creation of these new meals. And when I was hired by Readywise, the idea was to create these premium meals that didn't exist anywhere else on the market, premium ingredients. But the most important thing we were going to do was bring in athletes like Jeff. And Jeff had become a very close personal friend of mine in 2020 during the pandemic. I hiked the Colorado Trail in about four or five times as long as Jeff hiked it that year.
Gave him a high five as he ran by.
Yeah, I like to think I was like the beta tester, and then he really finished it out. A lot of his success is based on my success.
We actually met at the end of the my finish of the Colorado Trail. We talked virtually because the COVID stuff. And then Luke was out there to greet me at the finish of the Colorado Trail FKT. So that kind of launched the in-person friendship. And now I just stay at his house a few times a year.
Yeah. No, it was great. I mean, just like a little side story there. Jeff obviously had like the documentary crew filming his FKT attempt, and they're waiting for the big moment. I was just this guy that had showed up to meet, someone I knew virtually for 6 months, and they were all waiting and waiting. They didn't know when he was going to come in. And as they sat down and took a break, I go, "Oh, hey, Jeff." And all of them had to put their cameras down. And
I wasn't coming in, but
he wasn't coming in. So the film crew absolutely lost it for a moment of panic, but I had a good laugh, trying to keep them on their toes.
Yeah, sounds pretty solid. They remember you after that one.
Absolutely. But to answer your question, I did some consulting for Readywise and had this vision for what I thought would be, the next big meal line. And fortunately enough, they really appreciated my vision and hired me full time to come on board and make that a reality. And the fortunate opportunity I have is to bring people like Jeff and some of our other pro athletes along on this kind of fun ride to kind of promote some of the lesser known, but still like amazing athletes that we have in our outdoor industry.
Yeah. So maybe talk to me a little bit about Readywise as a brand then, right? So Readywise has made meals for a long time in this, like, not survival, but like food
emergency
storage, emergency space, and then also in backpacking a little bit, but maybe weren't as big as, say, the gorilla in the room of Mountain House, right? And
for sure.
So, talk to me a little bit maybe about their backstory, their push to come into this, and then I'd kind of love to hear about, like, is there specific resources or things that you guys were able to step into that helped pioneer or just create opportunity for you to make a more premium meal?
Yeah, I think our biggest resource that we have truly is Jeff and Zelzin and Andrew and Ike Eastman, who we made meals with, because, I mean, collectively, they probably have 100,000 miles of earth beneath their feet. on trails, and their insight.
That's just Jeff's numbers.
Yeah,
That's just Jeff's number between all of them.
Yeah, Jeff adds about, I don't know, I'm going to give you like 40,000 now.
A lot.
If you count training, it's probably way above that.
Oh yeah, it's pretty high. I mean, yeah, but yeah,
so
keep going.
Yeah, and Readywise as a company existed as an emergency company, started in Salt Lake City for about 10 years before they started to dip their toe in the water of backpacking, camping meals, things like that. And truly, like, they had the knowledge to create those meals, but I don't think they had someone like me who has had the experience on trail to kind of direct them in a way that sort of dove a little bit more into what backpackers and hikers and hunters are actually looking for. So once it was hired, I got a lot of the confidence of the company to really take this thing and use my resources and knowledge to really take it to the next level. And really having a premium meal is kind of the trend in freeze-dried meals right now. And I don't think that any company that's trying to create a budget meal per se right now is headed in the right direction, because people, if you get one good meal on trail, it better be a good one, And that was our goal the whole time, to create high calorie, high protein, and really clean meals that people can enjoy. We like to think we call them a Wednesday meal. You don't necessarily need to be on trail, but if you don't have food on a Wednesday night, you could open a pouch and enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I don't want to be like insensitive to economic situation of people, but I think you're spot on with the more premium side of meals these days, right? I think, the reality is people have more discretionary income than they've ever had in the history of the world, right? I mean, the economy's rough a little bit right now, but in general, there's just things that people care about. They have more discretionary income to invest into those things. And so with taking perhaps, and this is maybe an interesting point that I'll have Jeff speak on, without taking the long trailers, the thru hikers into consideration, who probably struggle to purchase these that often, right? Every single day or multiple times a day to be carrying those. That gets pretty expensive. But for the people that are going out and just want a really good weekend, right? Like, they're eating at Costa Vida anyways. So this, something like this is the same price as something like that anymore, because eating out is so expensive. And so to me, I think there is a bit of a trend shift in my eyes of, people are willing to put money into some of these things to create those experiences, and just inflation in general has crept up to the point where, like, this is just your typical like middle of the road meal for eating out these days. Whereas, even 10 years ago, I feel like, this would have been quite expensive of a meal. This would have been a sit down meal, with a server and everything. And now it's not. Correct.
Yeah. It's that price point is, when we originally started, we had to go through all the exercises of being like, is $13.99 a price point that people are willing to pay? And the answer is absolutely. We actually come in at a mid-range meal in terms of price point now. Many of the smaller like boutique companies are $15.95 all the way up to $19.95, which, $19.95 for me starts getting, no matter what the meal, starts getting a little expensive. I wouldn't pay that in a restaurant. I'm a hiker,
Right. And I think the big thing too is there's no reason to try to compete with ramen or ramen bombs and stuff too. So the whole budget philosophy, as far as across all outdoor sports and stuff, is sort of like, you can't make a meal for that. So why wouldn't you just put out a better meal? And if people want to have a ramen bomb, like, absolutely go for it. That's your budget way to do a thru hike. And maybe once in a while you do get that premium meal. Like when I was in Pie Town on the Continental Divide Trail, just some people eating at the restaurant there gave me a couple just freeze-dried meals, and those are just like celebratory things that you have in your pack for once a week or so at most. And I mean, it's just not economical to try to compete with the cheapest way to just get calories. So I think that's really the aim, and especially encompassing and going across multiple disciplines, just especially with the athletes that gotten to know and create meals with too. That's really the focus, is combine a number of those things, because everyone's using the same public lands in the grand scheme of things as well.
Yeah. And Jeff, I think Jeff knows, like Jeff's done the bean burrito train before, he's been there,
Yeah.
But nutrition actually becomes part of your routine when you're doing the things you do.
Yeah, I think a ramen bomb would probably sit in my gut just as good as a mountain house, right? So yeah, why have those two compete? May as well jump to the next tier up.
And when we created a meal with Ike Eastman, who is kind of a renowned hunter in the hunting industry, his whole thing was like, I'm done eating those. He's like, I'm not going to put my name on anything that I don't think is not going to give me the gut bomb. Mm-hmm. And so tested in Ike Eastman's gut, I guess we could say.
Yeah. So it sounds like, to back up just a little bit, for you, Jeff, eating a meal like this on a through hike is more like, a couple times a week, celebratory, like, all right, I want a good meal. I mean, obviously you're going in and out of towns at times, but some of these trails you're not in and out of towns as much. So I could see that really breaking up the monotony of budget or maybe lower quality food, right?
Yeah, and I would think of it more, and now it's harder to get away for a 4-month or, like I've done before, an 8-month through hike. And I'm doing a lot of races or overnight things or car camping at the start line of a 100-miler. And a lot of these meals really fit into, that's what you would have the night before going into something, because I mean, it's all real ingredients too. It tastes good, and you don't have to spend 10 minutes boiling your noodles or something just to have some average mac and cheese and stuff before. So I think it just fits in pretty well into that versatility aspect of it. And yeah, if I did another through hike, maybe once or twice a week or something, but it really is that a cross discipline type thing, and just fits into the whole car camping ethos as much as it does the through hiking world as well. Cause everyone can go on maybe a through hike, or maybe 3 if they're a triple crowner, but your whole life can't be through hiking, yet you still want to get out there. And when you have a real job, you can spend a little bit more money on a little bit better food.
Yeah. In that 100-mile, like 100 to 150 mile sweet spot, I would carry one for every day.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we do, right? We do a program called the 100-Mile Challenge, where we get a bunch of our followers to do that with us. And I mean, that's what we're doing. We're eating one of these for every dinner, and then a lot of times we'll even pack like we'll pack some of these for breakfast. Sometimes I would say honestly, a lot of times I see people eating these for dinner as well as breakfast. But yeah, I mean, I'm typically taking 1 or 2 prepackaged meals like this a day, and then I just have to come up with whatever lunch I want, which for me, I'm a sucker for anything I can put mayonnaise on. I don't know why. I crave mayonnaise out there.
Squeezing it out of the tube.
So if you like tape a mayonnaise packet to one of your future creations, I'll be your number one guy. No.
We'll send you one with mayonnaise attached.
The mayonnaise pro. You're the mayonnaise pro here.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I'm the same. I mean, if you're doing 100 miles or 150 miles, it's a distance that you can afford to and just have the space to likely pack one of these for every day. So,
and like you said, you could go to Starbucks in the morning and spend $13.99, or you could go to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee and a bag of
coffee,
chips.
Man, I like that is the most. So I'm not a big coffee drinker, right? Like I don't make it every day. I do drink like caffeine, a lot of caffeine, I would say, but it just blows me away. It blows me away that like the people that go and get a Starbucks every single day. It's wild.
Every day. I know.
Yeah, Jeff's like, that's me, guys. Shut up. But
no, I got my French press. I use it like 3 times a day.
Yeah, exactly.
He also has access to unlimited Readywise coffee. So,
oh, I'm gonna have to try that out. I haven't tried the Readywise coffee.
I think it's the best deal on the whole site, and it's completely unbiased because I should say it's my meal, but the coffee is the best deal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of been our sleeper product. Honestly, we wanted to get a good coffee, and when it hit the market, people, our price point is very good compared to the competitors. For the same amount, our closest competitor in the coffee realm charges $25. We charge $8.99 for 30 cups of coffee.
Instant coffee or like a steeped coffee or?
Yeah, it's like a freeze-dried coffee. So it's coffee that's freeze-dried. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I don't know if we stock that yet, so we'll have to.
Yeah, it's
Is
a
that
really
part of
good
like your
seller.
pro meal, or is it not really considered the pro meal side of things?
So it's done so well that we're going to transition it. We're going to change the packaging on it, and it's going to be absorbed into the pro meal line.
Awesome. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's
Okay,
really good. Yeah, I think your
so
customers love it.
yeah. So to back up just a little bit about like the creation process of food. I mean, in my head, what it takes to create something like this is like you've got a chef who's like backing into things and like, oh, you can't do that with this type of meal, or you can do that with this type of meal, because not everything freeze dries great, right? Like I want to say butter doesn't freeze dry great.
Not great.
So yeah, I'd love to hear kind of getting into the nitty gritty of like what it takes to create a high caliber meal, and how you get to that point.
It's good that like we're talking about that now. I just finished a tasting with eight meals, so I am full and full of experience at the moment. Truly, like it starts with like a big idea list, and it's like, okay, we think about like what are meals that you crave, or in Jeff's case, he was like, I want a meal that I can eat like on a tortilla for dinner or breakfast. And that makes sense. Like his breakfast skillet is like loaded with sausage and things like that. But truly, we start with a list, and then we go into like what things on this list are not doable. Like you said, butter's really hard. Bacon's really hard. Anything with a super high fat content, you really have to avoid. You can freeze dry it, but it doesn't have a very long shelf life. And the point of a freeze dried meal is that, these meals, our shelf life claim, at least on the new meals, because we don't have shelf samples yet, is 5 years. But if you had like butter or bacon in it, it would be as low as 1. So, you have to be really careful with things like that, because rancidity is just gross when it happens. And you can totally tell if you open an old bag that kind of oxygen got into or whatever. It's not a great experience, and we don't want anyone to have that. But we go through, like, I would say 50 iterations of a meal before it gets to a point where we're like, this is really good. We think we can do it. At that point, you have to back into it and say, can we afford to do it? So we make the meal that we want, and then we're like, okay, well, what do these ingredients cost?
So for Jeff, did you like create your own skillet and then basically just send it into them, and then they try to tell you what you can and can't do from there? Is that kind of the process for you?
It was a number of phone calls with what is it? It was like a chef at R&D, culinary trained people, and went through. Kind of the first call was what I would want, which was like potatoes in some sort of breakfast type skillet or breakfast meal type thing. And then that's when they play with it some and then come up with something, and then taste it. And then it becomes more feasibility beyond that and substituting things. And then when it goes from smaller batch to larger batch too is quite a difference as well. And so it's a lot of back and forth initially in the idea phase, and then it's tasting it. And then at some point you meet in the middle on what's feasible, and then what it's going to become. And then you get to do the fun stuff like the back of the packaging and that kind of thing.
Okay. So this wasn't necessarily like Grandma Garmire's like secret sauce. This was more of like, hey, this is what I'm really engineering in my head. Like, I want something with potatoes, and I want something with this. I want it to be able to maybe not be so soupy that I can put it on a tortilla, or like you're kind of giving them like these high level bullet points, and then you're just collaboratively working on phone calls and iterations and just lots and lots of that.
Yeah, Grandma Garmire, she wouldn't have made a single thing that could have been freeze dried. That stuff had so much fat. She was the best cook. I don't think she was fit for Readywise work, but it really does come from the idea, and my love of breakfast does come from her breakfast sandwiches that were just dripping in fat. So
we got some cheese in there for you, though. We got some cheese.
Yep. But it did start with like a Google form, and then jump on a call, and then narrow down on it, and then taste it, couple iterations, and then move forward with the larger batch, put it out, sampled. I guess we sampled it before it was even released too. I went out to CDT trail days. We sampled it even at Outdoor Retailer just to get
Winter
a good gauge. And yeah,
because probably where you guys came on my radar out honestly with it is I think I tasted it there and you guys said it was coming, and so then I was watching for it after that.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is, me, Luke, and a handful of others could try it, but I mean, the sample size is kind of the huge thing. You want to make sure it's applying to more a mass appeal rather than just a few people with a select taste discretion.
Yeah,
so
you can't even go to like, sorry to jump on you there, but like you can't even go to like trail days because they're all hungry anyway. They'll take whatever you give them.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm still laughing a little bit about Grandma Garmire because there must have been something about that era, right? Because I never knew why my grandma's like pancakes were so good until one time, instead of being off playing while she was making breakfast, I watched her butter the pancakes, and it's like a half a cube of butter per pancake, and you're like, I get it.
And then
now,
it gets that crispy edge.
So that's exactly. I think life has changed, right? Like people pay attention to macronutrients now, whereas back then it was just like something else.
Yeah.
That was the exact thing.
I wanted to add lard to something because it tastes good. I got denied on that one. Also, it doesn't freeze dry well.
What do you do? What do you do to like for specifically fats? How are you getting fats in there that will still freeze dry? Like I don't know if this one here has or not, but.
So what do you have? You have Jeff's there.
Yeah, I have Jeff's here. Got 16 grams of saturated fat. No, that's 3 grams of total fat.
That's usually comes from the protein and the protein, and like his has cheese in it as well. So that the sausage is where a lot of that fat comes from in that one.
That makes sense. Okay, so it just can't be like solid fat. It has to be. Yeah,
although going back to the butter thing, you can actually have butter, but it needs to be incorporated. So like. If you're making like a roux, which is butter and flour, that's sort of like I'm not a food scientist, but it stabilizes that butter somehow when it's attached to something else, which is kind of interesting. Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't want to use a ton of it, but a little butter in a recipe is not bad. Like biscuits have butter in it, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's a really interesting process, honestly.
Yeah, you take it through this entire process. You go from idea concept to going through that. Then you are doing small batches. You're taste testing those. And then you're jumping to big batches, right? And with a company like Readywise, from my understanding, we're talking like really big batches, right? Like other freeze-dried companies that I've talked to have like almost semi-truck sized freeze dryers, right?
Yeah.
They're huge machines, right? Is that kind of similar with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we freeze dry in very large machines.
And are you making these in those same size of machines? Like those huge batch machines?
Yeah. So we do large batches at a time. And when we order meat, it's in the thousands of pounds at a time,
Yeah.
And it's all cooked together too first before you even send it off. So that's kind of the difference in the whole process as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about the differences here because, for you guys, like you're not using, I don't know, in a lot of these, like they'll put like 2 full cups of water in a breakfast skillet specifically, right? Mm-hmm. And I've heard that part of the reason why these premium meals don't require that is there's less filler. Is that true? Maybe speak to that.
Yeah. So like the way we do it is the whole meal is fully cooked before it gets freeze dried, which kind of changes like the molecular structure of the food. You're not having to rehydrate every single element before the food becomes rehydrated again. So when you look at like some of the traditional meals, I'll probably shy away from saying any of their names. They just put a lot of freeze dried ingredients with like a powder sauce into a pouch, and the flavor combination happens when it's rehydrating, not before. So our flavor happens in the cooking process. So when you're rehydrating it, it's just becoming a real meal again.
Right.
And the brands that are really like stepped up with flavor and things like that are using that method. And it takes way less water to rehydrate and way less time when you fully cook and freeze dry that way.
Okay.
I know you've been playing around with the harvest right a little bit, right?
Yeah, we do have a harvest right here. Correct.
Yeah, so you probably find that as well when you fully cook a meal and freeze dry it, that you get a similar process in the rehydration side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that does make sense, right? Because it's like, I don't know, let's say you're adding in like powdered milk or something like that. It's almost like you have to liquefy that and then try to get it to absorb in. And there's just, it's almost like that. Yeah. The extra step there takes more than if it was already, facilitated throughout the meal. Right. So.
Yeah. It's super interesting. And, even freeze-dried companies learn new things about freeze-drying every day. Some ingredients you put in, you say, wonder why that had that reaction, I mean, I personally have freeze-dried everything in our test freeze dryer. I mean, everything from Skittles to, you name it, I'll throw it in there. Pickles, churros, tried it all.
What's the best thing?
Pickles, yeah.
Dude, pickles get so salty. It condenses that salt flavor. You would have to have like a very lightly brined pickle.
I think that's coming in Jeff's coaching program. He sends those out for people that are cramping. That's what I need. I cramp a lot when I run, so I'll just slam a freeze-dried pickle.
That's right. Let's have a pocket of pickles.
Jeez. Oh.
Honestly, I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
We've done guacamole is really good. Rehydrates really well.
That's a high fatty one. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a high fat. We'd have to test that a little bit before we brought it to market, but stuff like that is always fun to play around with. You get to just take things you love, even if it's like a fatty food. If you were going to have a fatty food and you're going to eat it like on a trip you're going on, like if you did it in your harvest right dryer, you could do it. You're not keeping it for years and years, selling commercially. So
2
tastes
months
good,
maybe something like that, or
doesn't the candy blow up? Doesn't the candy
blows up?
Yeah, caramel like explodes for whatever reason.
Yeah, ice cream can get a little wild in there.
Yeah, yeah. You come out with like a gelato, like a really high end ice cream sandwich.
Oh yeah, I like that. We tried some ice cream the other day. That was top notch.
Yeah, I could get behind that because I think that's what I crave. Going back to like the mayonnaise, I crave like the fats. I think.
Yep.
So something like ice cream would definitely hit the spot for me.
That's why I think a lot of like the dishes, like the pasta alla vodka, has cream in it. But when the cream is freeze dried, you still get some of that fattiness that comes back, and it's very satiating when you're out there.
So, what do you think are some things to look for and avoid with freeze dried meals? Like we've kind of danced around it or touched on a few points maybe, but is there anything we've maybe missed? Because I think there is that. Some even from maybe 5 years back, right? It was like freeze dried meals, they don't sit well, or they whatever it is, right? Is there things that can be learned from all of your guys' experience with this to just avoid or to look at differently?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you've probably had some gut bombs from some meals in your day, I'm assuming. Yeah, I think the biggest thing though is probably going, 5-10 years ago, everything was so packed with sodium that you'd have to take an extra liter of water to bed with you just because it would have so much sodium in it. And I think that's been a pretty big changing thing, is maintaining a real meal rather than something coated in salt as well.
Yeah. Was that part of like the filler process or the preservation process to add that much sodium? Because I remember people talking about like their hands swelling up and all sorts of things, right? Because they were consuming so much.
I mean, I will say that there is a big challenge reducing sodium in meals because so many things have salt in it these days. Like when you make a biscuits and gravy, the biscuit has so much salt in it that it like raises the rate of the sodium so high, so the whole meal might be low in sodium, but that single biscuit is like, will blow it up. The other things to look at are like if a brand is using fillers and cheap meats. We do not use cheap meat at all. It is like more than half the cost of every meal because we put a lot of meat in it. And we have a very reputable, very well-known source for our meat. And it makes a big, big difference.
Yeah, I mean that is to me what sets apart like a premium meal versus not is you can taste that difference of good quality meat for sure, and the amount of meat as well.
Yeah.
When you say filler, do you just mean like, I don't know if it's something with rice in it, like extra rice, or do you mean like something that someone could read on a package? And
Yeah, like
that's just a filler.
there's like TVP is a filler. Also, like people like other brands, in order to get the protein up, will put in like pea proteins or powdered proteins, so they can make the high protein claim. But it's not adding any flavor to the meal. It's just getting them to like a marketable number.
Yeah, and if you've never had pea protein, I could see why that could wreck your gut. I've like tried
exactly.
some of those at times, and it's like if you're not used to that, it's different. I mean, it's way different.
Yeah, I would always look at the back of the package, and for the most part, you should be able to read everything on it. If you don't know what it is, then you should probably rethink purchasing that. Some ingredients are natural ingredients that sound crazy, that generally like the public wouldn't know, like niacin in an egg, right? Niacin is just a natural ingredient. Okay. And every freeze-dried egg has it.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the back of this, and I'll just hit you with any questions I have. So there's eggs, and you've got xanthan gum.
Yep, that's xanthan gum is like it makes it so the eggs don't get runny.
Okay. And then you've just got one that just says enzymes.
Enzymes. Yeah. Enzymes are just like they're natural enzymes in the egg.
But I'm looking at like, I don't know, 20 plus items on here, and I know what every single one of them is, right? Compared to like a lot of times you flip a package over and it's like, I know 1 of 10 of these.
Right. Yeah.
That's probably the more common thing anymore, I feel like, because I know like 2 out of the 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
and like some common ones that you'll see are like maltodextrin. Maltodextrin isn't like dangerous for really anything, but it's in almost all even the cleanest freeze-dried meals. It's just a carbohydrate. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's helpful for people for sure. I mean, we preach it a lot, right? If you're doing big miles, I think nutrition is huge, right? And some people have iron guts and some people don't, and some people need specific nutrition and some people don't. I mean, Jeff, you're talking about, coaching running athletes and FKT people right now. Like nutrition is, in my eyes, one of the biggest components of that, right? Like, and on an FKT, it's not like you're stopping probably to make one of these, right? But people are becoming super conscious of what they're eating, and I think that's it's an interesting direction that we're heading in. And so, as you guys, I guess, looked at making all of these meals that you rolled out, was it 8 meals?
8 new meals, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, as you're looking at that, did you really leave it 100% up to the athletes? Were you looking to hit target thresholds of like macronutrients? Was there any kind of template or borderlines that you tried to rein people in a little bit on, or?
Yeah, sort of. Like we wanted to make sure that like our benchmarks were basically calories, protein, carbohydrates to start, because we wanted it to be as balanced as possible for the athletes. And really, we took a lot of that information from people like Jeff and Zelzin and Alex. Like they know kind of what they want to consume in a day. So we started and used that. And if we had to adjust as we went along, like if the saturated fat got crazy or whatever, we dial those things down, And we try to, as a company, like pay attention to things like sodium. Sometimes it gets a little bit out of control. Like you just can't get to where it needs to be. Sodium gets super concentrated when it's freeze dried. But for the most part, we are very conscious of what's going in these meals and really want to put out a product that will help athletes and just people in general that are high output people, like really have a meal that will suit their nutritional needs on trail.
Yeah.
I think another,
go ahead.
I was going to say another big thing going in was the lesser water needed for it. And then also the quicker rehydration time, because I remember in 2016 on the Calendar Year Triple Crown, if I had a freeze-dried meal, I would cook it and then hike another 1.5 miles before it was ready to eat. And so
like 6 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even just now, it's sort of like you can boil your water, pour it in, and then set up your tent, and then it's ready to eat by the time you're set up for camp.
This just gave me a great marketing idea, Jeff. We'll put a meal in and see how far you can run before it is rehydrated.
Wow, I like this. Yeah, I'll do it on a track and see how many laps.
Yeah. That'd be great.
That's awesome.
Average time 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember from years ago when you would eat a freeze-dried meal that wasn't fully rehydrated yet too. It was like that was part of where a lot of the discomfort in the stomach came, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I can eat these even if I didn't want to wait the full amount of time or I'm a little bit ahead. And I don't experience that at all either. Interesting side
we
effect.
want people to have like the perfect rehydrated experience, but we all know here that like people don't wait long enough. They don't mix it up. There's a lot of user error in these. And like every once in a while you get a crunchy bit. It's kind of par for the course,
Mm-hmm.
But truly like these should alleviate a lot of that with the process.
Yeah. And I like your guys' focus on protein. I feel like that's one of the things that can be hard. Like, so if you're supplementing this or eating one of these a day, I think having a good meal with a substantial amount of protein helps balance out the day just a little bit too, right?
Yeah.
Carbs are pretty easy to pick up at a gas station, right? But sometimes it's things more like the protein that I feel like can help right the day per se a little bit in terms of nutrients. But
and for us, like with the proteins, like proteins are super important, and we do not chintz out on them. Our stroganoff, sometimes we've gotten feedback that people are like, this is very meaty. Like
mm-hmm.
It's more meat than noodles sometimes.
It's pretty dense. Yeah, I've had similar thought eating that as well.
Yeah.
Not complaining. No
one ever complains that they got too much meat in a meal, for sure.
Yeah. So maybe let me talk a little bit, or have Jeff talk a little bit about just nutrition in general when you're going out on hikes. Let's say you're doing just a 20-mile day, so just a 20-mile day, and you're backpacking, kind of hitting that like 20-mile pace. You're through hiker. Is there things that like have adapted or changed for you over time as you've become? I mean, you've always been an athlete, but I feel like you're pushing your own levels, right, of athleticism and health and things. It seems like from the outside. So I'm curious what. Or if there has been changes to how you look at a day's nutrition, even if you are through hiking or doing roughly 20 miles a day.
Yeah, it's come a long ways from actually starting to care about it. I mean, in 2019, I did the long trail record with 3 packs, so 24 frozen burritos, and I just ate those for 6 days. So it has come a long, long ways. And really, you already hit the nail on the head. The protein is one of the biggest things. Even in the last 2 months, I've done 200-mile races, and in the middle of each of them, I've had actually a protein shake, because protein is that kind of essential thing that's lacking from most in anything that you're doing, whether it's through hike or run or something. It's that thing that it provides that depth of your nutrition and that longer burning fuel source. So that's really, just like you already mentioned, it's the number one thing to try to get. It's good and fine after an activity, but before and during it has the biggest benefits. So that's a huge thing that I focus on. So if I'm going out for a long day or whatever it may be, it's starting in the morning, and I'd probably have, if we're throwing this meal in there, I'd probably have it for breakfast or lunch, because that it may feel better to eat it and then relax at the end of the day, but you're going to get the most benefit from that protein and all those nutrients from in the middle or before you start your day. And then I've really transitioned a lot more away from the maybe one big meal a day and then a lot more snacks. So the goal is always to eat something every hour. Maybe you're not feeling that hungry, even a couple bites of something. You just never want to have that hour long of depleted status, because that's when that lull comes later. So it's just keeping that calorie drip going. And then if you can get in a little bit of protein, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And really just efficiency other than that is really what I've harped on kind of my whole career of doing this type of stuff. Is you want to have it be in your pocket or reachable, or if you're taking a break, you don't want to have to be waiting on something else when you're ready to go and you're still waiting on water to boil or whatever. You want to be ready to move while the moving's good.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have a question about that 20-mile day.
Yeah.
What do you do with the other 21 hours?
I mean, sort of fair. Just eat,
Yeah.
Just eat Readywise meals, huh?
So
drink coffee for sure.
Yeah. So I think I've always looked at protein like a post-workout recovery thing, right? Like that's like the big thing, right? You go to the gym and then you have your workout shake after, right? Or and I think I've kind of thought the same way, like getting one of these meals at the end of a long day helps you to recover for the next day, like your muscular. So why are you pushing a little bit more of like the before and during? What's the benefits of that? Is it keeps you from crashing? Does it keep your muscles from breaking down more? Or
yeah, it's just getting ahead of it. As your muscles are breaking down, you already have the protein. I mean, going towards the muscles, and especially later in something, if you're having, some protein or a handful of nuts or whatever, like a couple hours before, you have that 2 hours of it's already working on your body, and then hitting it through that exercise. It's good after, but I think in the morning or that way to start with that correct level of protein or flowing through your body already really just aids in that. I think there's no problem in having protein after. I just think you're realizing less of those benefits during the activity. In the grand scheme of things, it might equal the same, but if you have that protein halfway through a long day, then that second half of the day is going to feel more like the first half rather than being a slog to the end.
Okay. Besides a full-on meal, what's some of your favorite ways to sneak protein into that it's quick and efficient?
Nuts are super good. Yeah, I think I like the gas station little 99-cent peanut packets that are like flaming hot ones. I'm a sucker for those because they're just like easy to put a bunch in your pocket. So that's a good way. And then just having done a lot of ultra marathons, and Luke actually got me a little portable blender thing for my birthday. You can just whip up a protein shake like in the middle of a loop or something out there. So I think liquid calories is a big thing that a lot of the sports world is moving towards too. So sort of that balance of, letting your gut take a little bit of a break from having to consume 5,000 calories of solid food. You can get 1,000 to 2,000 of that just by drinking things. So that's a pretty good little life hack too, to meet the demands of a long day.
Yeah, I think
Jeff, what's your personal record for 100 miles?
I did one a month ago in 17 hours. So
all right.
Wow. It's incredible. Congrats.
Thanks.
No, I think that's actually something I want to experiment with this year as far as the liquid calories go. And this is kind of getting into more of the running world, but you have those powders and whatnot that are just tons of sugars and carbs, right? Like 400 calories of sugars in one mix or whatever, and just like almost zero protein. And I can definitely start to feel that lack of it. And I feel like it does start to throw me off versus when I was pacing for that Moab race, it was a lower, slower exertion level. And so like when you'd go into those aid stations, like I'd eat a hamburger and I felt so much better. Like, so I was thinking about that a little bit because I know that there's some of those mixes out there as far as liquid calories that are starting to mix some proteins in. So that's something I'm definitely wanting to experience and experiment with this year. So no, I think that's really, really helpful for sure. Get the protein in throughout the day. And in reality, I imagine what this really boils down to is keeping a pretty balanced approach throughout the entire day too, because it can be much easier to just get in carbs or to just get in, some of these other things. So keeping that balance throughout the day, obviously pays dividends in results and feeling good throughout the day. So awesome.
Yeah. And
maybe that's something we need to work on.
Oh. Yeah. And I mean, I would zoom out even more and say that like it's hard to, I don't love all the things out there, and a lot of them are heavy on the carb, but if it's lower on the sugar side, that the carbs can be okay, especially if you're supplementing it with something like a bag of nuts or something like that. So you're getting that balanced approach. It's the sugar that more so leads to those crashes rather than the more simple carbs. So I think that the low sugar approach, whatever your diet may be, I think it's hard to find someone touting a high sugar diet other than maybe through hikers.
Yeah. Other than FKT guys that eat
powered by Sour Patch
6,000 calories a day. Yeah. Are you able to eat things like nuts or proteins on more of a sprint race where it's 50 to 100 miles? Like, can you still stomach those pretty well? I mean, it sounds like you have an iron gut if you can eat nothing but frozen burritos.
I'm pretty good at puking a lot, but I can puke and rally pretty good. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's really, you just break it in halves. Like if you can be good for the first half and get a good level, then if you're pushing as hard as you can, the second half is going to be a lot harder. So you're just inevitably trying to push your body as far as it can go before it starts breaking down. And once you get to that point, you're just holding on and eating like one chip at a time or one peanut at a time or something. So it's a totally different nutritional approach rather than a multi-month or multi-day outing where the goal there is to feel good and enjoy the experience. When it's 100-mile and trying to see how fast you can go, you're not looking and expecting to feel good the entire time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, we've covered a lot, guys. I feel like I've asked most of the questions that I was planning to ask, but I know you guys have a ton of.
I have a question for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let's talk beard care.
It always looks so good.
So good.
Yeah.
No.
Is there oil in your life?
Like, out on trail, not so good all the time. No. If that's what
you go Viking style and braid it.
Dude, I'm a bit of a sportsman, so if I'm archery hunting, I will braid it.
Nice.
Otherwise, I'll throw it into just a pony, essentially, just get it out of my way. But
dude, we got to get you at one of the Total Archery Challenges this summer. They're cool, really cool events.
Yeah, I've done those like since the beginning.
Nice.
They're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun for sure. So, but I try to do minimal care on the beard actually. So
wow.
There's
Very
guys that'll
impressive.
push it and like try to grow it way past this, and this is for the amount of effort I want to put in. This is as long as it'll get. If that makes sense. So.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you knew this, but Jeff and I used to have a podcast called Tuesdays at 2, and we would frequently go on tangents about things like that. So I mean, we could talk about your beard for about the next 45 minutes if we had to.
You guys are well rehearsed at that.
We get off the rails.
Yeah, you can go down a rabbit hole. That's for sure. Did you have to shave on some of these 8-month long trails, Jeff, or?
No, I would always start clean shaven, and just so I could have the pictures that showed it getting longer and longer. I mean, I think my picture on the back of that package is maybe 5 months into an adventure.
Oh yeah.
So there's some beard on there.
Look like the longest I've seen it. Yeah, that's a solid few months. I like it.
And the glasses. Did you have the glasses in that picture?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Glasses.
Yeah.
Where is that at?
In Oregon on the PCT.
Okay. That's awesome. So you're thinking there's some more meals to come. You guys aren't done yet.
Oh, we're definitely not done. We got some great athletes and organizations we've been talking to for 2024, and just solidifying some of that now. And then we'll be full bore into 8 more meals, fingers crossed,
Wow. Is that something you think can happen in 2024, or is it going to more like a 2025 thing?
Oh, it's going to happen.
I feel like Luke brings a lot of passion and energy to this team.
We try.
Yeah.
We try. Sometimes it's a grind, but we love our food.
Yeah. That's awesome.
This is your opportunity right here, right now, to lay a meal out there that you've never had before that you would like to try in a pouch.
Oh man, in a pouch.
In a pouch, freeze dried.
All right, one that I've made personally in our freeze dryer that was really good.
Okay.
This one, it's like the I'm going to forget the name of the restaurant. Olive Garden, I think, makes it. It's
Yeah.
like a Zuppa Toscana.
Ooh, that's on my list.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
That's on my 2024 list. Don't tell anybody.
We'll edit this out. Yeah, really good. Probably my favorite I've ever had. So yeah, play around with that. Of course, I don't know how long that could have stayed in a package. You know what I mean? Like you have so much more work to do. Right. But it was very creamy and very satisfying. So yeah,
you got a little potato in there and like a little kale.
But I would love to see you guys continue to come out with more like snack or supplementary things, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a few out there, but like honestly, like random things like pickles, like I would be interested in that. Like or just whatever it is, right? But little things like that. Yeah, I'd be interested in them. Like people do jerky, right? So like why not just freeze-dried strips of, I don't know, because like I guess I've eaten things that I don't rehydrate from freeze dryers, and some of them work, right? So you could have
like the churros work really well.
Yeah. So stuff like that I think would be pretty cool too. But
nice.
Yeah, I used to dehydrate a lot, and kiwi was actually really good because it's like tart and it's just like a little different. I don't know. There were a lot of those
sweet and tart.
Yeah. There's a lot of those little fringe foods you wouldn't think of, but I tried everything in the dehydrator, and it was always an adventure. Tomatoes came out surprisingly interesting. And
tomatoes are amazing freeze-dried.
Yeah,
they're in our pasta alla vodka.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how it starts essentially. Ideas saying, what do you want? And then we just go. So when you get Zuppa Toscana, you'll know you played a small part in that.
Okay. I just am adding fuel to the fire of what you've already got going. But yeah, if I come up with more, or maybe people listening to this will come up with more, I'll
truly
try to
drop a comment. We'll watch. We'll develop. That's what we're here to do. Have fun with food.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I mean, food is fun. Food is culture, right? So the more options, the better. I know, like with everyone on my team, right? We do hike a lot. We do spend a lot of time out, and just like we can get fatigued. We're lucky, right? Most of the time, if we're going hiking, we're eating a more premium freeze-dried meal. And so when you guys rolled these out, there was like this huge sigh of relief around the office of just like, yes, like variety, right?
Yeah,
so
variety.
They will love to hear that there's even more variety coming. And yeah, just it's fun. It's fun to see it all. So really appreciate you guys coming on the show, breaking this down for people, really walking us through that process of what it takes to make a meal. I stand by the fact, yet again, that I think that these are well worth the money. You're out there. How many days a year do you get to really spend outside? And if there's something that can make those days better, like that's what you should live for, right? And so make them better. I know personally, I love to take my kids backpacking a couple times a year, and that's one of the things that they look forward to is like these delicious meals. And if they're having a crappy experience, like that paves the way in a negative way. And so that's one of those things that I love, the fact that like I'll pull out the packaging and show it to them, and they're excited about eating good and stuff that they know that they're going to like. And so it adds a lot. It adds a lot to these trips. I think that it's really, really important, and definitely appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks, Jason. It's really been great to be here and kind of share a little bit about the stuff we do. And Jeff, you're the best.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having us. And, once you eat that whole thing, it doubles really good as a resealable trash bag too.
I can second that. That is my go-to. That is my go-to trash bag. So
strong hack of the day.
So real quick, where can people find you? I will say I went on your guys' website, and people have an easier time finding the meals on our website than your website. So just go to outdoorvitals.com to find the meals. But
we're here to support all our customers. Just go find them on Outdoor Vitals.
Any other areas people can follow you, and as well as you, Jeff? I'll give you an opportunity to kind of pitch what you do as well.
We're just at Readywise Outdoor on Instagram and TikTok. So you can find us there. A little bit more active on Instagram because our outdoor friends mostly live on Instagram.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. And then I'm the Free Outside on Instagram and Free Outside on everything else. And if you want to learn all the expertise that went into this meal, you can read my book called Free Outside.
That's right.
And I want to follow up on one thing. You were the last time we interviewed you, I want to say you were doing some touring of your Colorado Trail film. I imagine that touring is completed now. Is there a place people can go rent or watch that film?
Soon. Distribution company is getting it, working with streaming services right now. So hopefully February, March timeframe. And then it should be live and announce where it's going to be. But yeah, it'll definitely be out in early 2024.
So follow Jeff for that, or when it does come out, Jeff, maybe shoot us a message and we'll try to share that as well and let people know it's available. But really, really awesome film you put together. So excited to be able to share that with more and more people. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for building these meals. And I look forward to more and more people getting an opportunity to try them.
Absolutely. And thanks for what you guys do too. I love all the gear that you've been putting out. I had the opportunity to try a lot of it this summer as we were at the same shows and things like that. So really good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right. I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. I really enjoyed that conversation. Those guys were both a lot of fun to have on, and there was a lot of really good information. Jumping into that, I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to cover, but was just blown away at the amount of good quality information. I know that personally, I'll continue to work in protein throughout my days on trail. It's just one little snippet, but also, like I mentioned in there, I am a big fan of consuming at least one of these meals a day on trail. It really wraps the whole day for me into an enjoyable experience. That hot meal that is of a very high quality really grounds me for some reason out there. So definitely encourage you guys to check out these meals from Readywise. Again, you can get them over at outdoorvitals.com through that Live Ultralight membership, and go follow those guys on their Instagram handles as well. If you guys have not yet, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, write us a review, share the podcast. Those help us to grow, as well as just help more people get outdoors more comfortably and more confidently, which is our entire purpose. Our whole goal is to get more people outside to balance out this crazy world that we live in, where so much technology can really tip us over in one direction. We want to make sure people are getting balanced, connecting with themselves, connecting with those important around them, and disconnecting from some of those other things. So if that resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed, leave us a review. We greatly, greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys on a future episode.